keep it like this.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go because we got so much stuff to cover still, and things that aren't even about records for specifically. But so let's just do the Doors, and it can be sort of as much or as little. We've touched on a lot of it. The fact that that you were the engineer from the beginning, but then you produced L.A. Woman. But just as much or as little as you want to talk about, because obviously then post Jim, you didn't work on the records that the Doors put out at that point, but you've been working on their catalog now for 30 something years since those records, right? So
has it been that long?
No, it's been like 4 months, 5 months.
And I have
tops.
I have the good luck of working with dead people.
Well,
they don't give me any shit,
Yeah, I see the way my life goes. I'd still get mixed notes from them.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, I'll do something. I'll turn around and I'll go, Ray, is that okay? Or with this guy over here, that where is he? There he is.
Robbie.
I'll turn to him and I'll say, hey, how was the mix? And I have the ability to push a button and he'll come out and say more bass, something like
more bass. Well, that's never wrong. That's never wrong.
So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, all my studio experiences with them were varied. I mean, I just finished 50th anniversary box set of Morrison Hotel. And one entire disc comprises of 2 songs, Queen of the Highway and Roadhouse Blues. And it's basically outtakes with a lot of studio chatter.
Right.
And it's really, really fascinating to hear how much Jim had to say about the direction and how things needed to be. And especially when he talks about Blue Sunday out of Peace Frog, and he's instructing the band how to go into it. And I had forgotten about all that. I mean, it was, I was younger then, and it's, I think people are going to really like the disc because it's got a lot of cool stuff in it. And you can see how Paul and the band are separating.
Right.
Getting away from one another because Paul's getting tired of it. Because he had felt after a while, because of the Soft Parade, that he had to save the band. And he was the one who would be the A&R man now.
Right.
This is the songs you'll be doing. This is how you'll be doing them. Take another take, another take, another take, another. He got into perfection rather than performance. I mean, it happens to us all, but it did. And you can really hear that. And there's some stuff I left off because I just felt it was unnecessary.
Right.
To bring that up. But it's really fascinating. And the next one will be the LA Woman with a lot of outtakes. And that's pretty cool. But you can really hear Jim's involvement. I didn't realize at the time how much.
So was Jim another one who heard the finished record in his head, or he just knew what he needed to feel to be able to sing what he was going to sing?
Well, yeah, I'm sure you've heard the story, and I know Ray told it, that originally when they were going to school, they wound up at the beach one day at Santa Monica, and Jim sang Ray 22 finished songs. Done.
Wow.
And that's when they decided to put a band together and do the arrangements, bring John Densmore in, bring Robbie Krieger in. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Very infrequently was a song created in the studio.
Right.
Hardly ever. There were times when they came in the studio and were rehearsed because they were used to being on the road. And when they're on the road, you can't work up new songs. It's not like the old days of being in your, the early days of writing when he had 22 songs. It was getting a little dry.
Yeah, you had a sound check
Bobby
and that was it.
Up and started doing more, yeah. So that was kind of what was happening. So it was like they didn't really want to be there anymore. They didn't want to be told anymore. I don't want to do another take. What was wrong with that? Can't we just do the intro and cut it on? You know, things like that.
So were all of the records up to LA Woman made at Sunset?
No.
No. Okay.
No. The first two were The Doors and Strange Days. And then we did Unknown Soldier in Studio 2 at Sunset. And I think one other, I'm not sure. And then everything else was at TTG, which was a studio on the corner of Sunset and Highland, which had a Stan's Drive-In on the corner next to it with great car hops.
Wow. Okay, guys, I know that corner, and it's not there now.
No, and downstairs was the studio, which was called Conway Recorders at the time. It was a precursor to,
right,
built by a fellow Englishman of Phil Yend, who was Brian's mate. And they used to ride motorcycles together.
Wow.
And it was an 8-track room with a 4-track console. It was originally built by Radio Recorders. They had built the studio upstairs, which was Studio 10 each. So the whole facility got updated by Ami Hadani and designed the record plant, famous acoustician. I'll think of his name in a moment. And that's where Frank Zappa did all the Mother's Invention recordings up there, did a lot of Ella Fitzgerald up there, a lot of Irv and MGM, records of those days. But anyway, so we recorded the rest of the album there and mixed it upstairs.
Right.
I mean, I used to go up there and watch Bones Howe do jazz albums for Liberty Records.
Right. So when, we can talk about early records if you want, but obviously LA Woman it's kind of a big deal. So up to you if you want to, if there's anything in particular about the whole catalog up to then.
Questions.
Well,
I'm trying to remember.
So you'd obviously worked with him a bunch. Was it just like an obvious thing that when Paul left, you were going to produce this record, or did they talk about other producers, or how did it come about that you were going to produce it?
It's an interesting story, and I totally understand it. Paul had just finished making Janis Joplin's album, Pearl. And he and Janis were in love with one another. I mean, seriously in love with one another. And he realized if he was going to get an album, they couldn't get it on. So he said to her, even during I think it might have been one of the sessions that I did, he said, Pearl, we love one another, but we can't do anything. I'm going to have to fuck on tape. It's just one of the great producer lines of all time.
That is a very fine producer line.
Yeah. And so when she died, he was just destroyed.
Yeah.
And then he went to the rehearsals for the LA Woman. Remember Jerry Scheps? And the band was totally uninterested. They didn't want to know. They didn't want to go through Soft Parade and Morrison Hotel again. They didn't feel that they needed to be told anymore what to do. They knew what to do. And he's sitting there and listening to Riders on the Storm and going, that's fucking cocktail jazz. It sucks. He said, I'm out of here. He says, I can't do this anymore. He says, you produce them. You'll make $250,000. Good luck. And we went to dinner. All of us went to Muling, a Chinese restaurant down the street, and hugged one another, hugged and kissed. And then we went back to Sunset Sound, and the guy said, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, where do you feel most comfortable? They said, our rehearsal room. I said, great. I'll get some remote gear and we'll go there and do it. And that's how it happened.
Right.
And about 2 weeks later, we recorded the album in, I think it was about 5.5 days.
Wow.
Like we did. The first album took us 3.5 days to record.
Right. Because they were just ready. It's
Yeah. And it was lovely because I found, going back to all the 8 tracks, that some songs, first, second take.
right.
And bringing Jerry Scheps in, the Elvis bass player, which Jim absolutely loved.
So let's talk about that just in a general thing with that band, how the bass player on the records thing worked, because it's kind of a big deal on the records. I mean, there's no attempt to make it sound like a keyboard bass. It's a bass. But obviously that's not the characteristic of the band when you'd go see them live. So how did that come about, and how did they all feel about it? Was that something they wanted to do? They wanted a bass player in there? It was like that was always going to happen, but they had no interest in taking a bass player like into the band.
Yes and no. They never did it live. I mean, I can say at the end, had Jim come back, that I just told you to remember his name for me. Yeah. He would have been part of the band. They asked him.
Right.
But we always had a live bass player second album on. It was Doug Luban. He did the second and the third album. He did a little bit of the fourth, and Harvey Brooks did all of that, Soft Parade, and he did some of Morrison Hotel, and then because I was recording Lonnie Mack at the time, who I love, and he played bass on Roadhouse Blues. He brought that one night stand Chitlin circuit feel,
right,
to it, with Black Beauties,
And are they writing their own bass lines, or this is always Ray's left hand, check out what he's doing, this is what you're going to do? Because it's a really, this is a kind of a ridiculous story, but we had a next door neighbor in LA, and every New Year's Eve, he'd get super drunk and he'd crank the doors. But of course, all we could hear was the bass, because it's one house away. And it's like listening to Montuno. It's left-hand Latin piano bass. It really is.
Well, Ray used to refer to his left hand as lefty. and I always used to say, well, it's like you sliced yourself in half. There's this guy, and there's this guy. And I was talking with James Newton Howard about this on Saturday, that the way that Ray was literally able to separate himself. It's really hard to do. I mean, piano players are used to doing stride and doing this, but to literally cut yourself in half was extraordinary. I mean, Ray was really unique. And a lot of the times the bass players had to emulate Ray's left hand.
Right.
When we did, I think in Morrison Hotel, it started to really lighten up when Harvey came in. And especially when Jerry Scheps came in.
And so would Ray play as well with his left hand, or because he's so used to doing that? I mean, I can't imagine he'd want both hands to play keyboard parts at that point, because that's not what he was doing. But how did that work?
I don't know, because when he used to play just piano, 10 fingers.
Yeah.
It didn't work like a normal piano player for some reason. It was always that.
Right. Completely independent, even when he's on one instrument.
It was still the struggle to get that guy to be with this guy, I think.
Wow.
But he did it. But I mean, he is, he's not like a lot of piano players I know, but he loved jazz. Absolutely loved jazz.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing because it's especially with some of the tones, and like on I can't remember